We're allowing the child to explore the situation from their own perspective and experience, which will help them to follow through and own the outcome. And they'll grow in confidence and competence around problem solving.
This is so much more impactful for their healthy development than just telling them what they should do. We really want them to own their solutions. Right. It's good for them to wrestle with this and figure it out on their own. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome back to our final installment of this mini-series focused on becoming an emotion coaching parent. If you missed any of the previous episodes where we covered steps 1 through 4, you'll want to go back to those first, and we've put links in the show notes for those.
That's right, because throughout this mini-series, we've been focusing on a specific 5-step framework from John Gottman's book, Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child, that has been so valuable for us over the past 2 decades of raising kids. And we're sure it will help equip you to come alongside your kids and stepkids and help them navigate through negative emotions while guiding them to problem solve on their own.
So, great job moving through the first 3 episodes. And we commend you for coming back today to invest in the final step of this effective but fairly simple parenting tool. Give yourself a huge pat on the back. Well done. And we encourage you to hang in there till the end of this episode and maybe take some good notes, because step 5 has several important components that we're going to be covering. So just a quick recap before we dive into step 5. Step 1 is being aware of your child's emotions. Step 2 is recognizing the emotion as an opportunity to build intimacy and to teach the child. Step 3 is all about listening empathetically and validating your child's feelings. And then step 4 is helping your child verbally label their emotion. So hopefully you've had a chance to do some self-reflection and maybe even try a little practicing at these first 4 steps. So honey, are you ready?
Yep.
What's step 5, this final step of emotion coaching?
Well, before I get to that, I just want to point one thing out. Step 5 is something you might pick up on pretty quickly because it's actually where many parents tend to start out. And this was certainly true for me before I learned how to be an emotion coaching parent.
Okay.
But it's important to resist the urge to just jump into step 5 before going through steps 1 through 4. Because when kids are in an emotionally charged state, they need those first 4 steps before they're able to fully engage in this last one, which is setting limits while helping the child problem solve.
Okay, so what you're saying is that most of us, you and me included, are a little overly eager to set limits,
right?
Which really means that we tend to start by enforcing a correction or discipline bad behavior, and then maybe try to go into problem solving later in an attempt to avoid the problem in the future. Do I have that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And I'll add that most of us think we're really good at fixing or solving our kids' problems.
What do you mean? I thought I was great at being a fixer.
It's basically telling them what they should do instead of helping them to work through and solve their own problems. That's the goal.
Yeah, I got to own the fact that I tend to jump into fix-it mode too much. Even though I know that my jumping into fix-it mode really means that I've decided it's my job to control things, which doesn't work very well with most kids, especially when they hit the teenage years and they're in that developmental stage where they actually need to start taking some control in their own lives.
Yeah, and it's not just teenagers. All kids have an innate counter will that tends to kick off when they're being told what to do or what not to do. They naturally push back against parental control, and this is what often leads to unproductive power struggles. This is a very real struggle, and it's one of the reasons why we need to focus on those first 4 steps before we go about setting limits and solving problems that occur.
Absolutely. So we had a parenting expert, Amanda Reeder, on the show a while back to teach us a bit about this counter will you're talking about, which often to most of us just looks like defiance. And she shared some strategies to use when counter will pops up, as well as some insight around when a parent should and shouldn't demand compliance from a child in a heated moment.
Right.
And so we'll put a link in the show notes to episode 28 with Amanda if you want to go and learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, that's really important to understand. But let's just imagine for a moment something about the example we've been using throughout the mini-series of our kids, Phoebe and Jacob, having a struggle with each other at their unicycle club practice.
Okay.
If I hadn't done steps 1 through 4 and I jumped straight away into limit setting and problem solving with the kids, if I had quickly scolded Jacob for calling Phoebe a jerk and being rough with his unicycle and then ordered him to apologize and pay for any damages to the unicycle, and if I'd peppered Phoebe with things like, why are you so quiet? Stop sulking. Cheer up. Accept your brother's apology and just move on. Honey, based on what you know about our kids, how do you think they may have responded to that?
Oh, well, Jacob's anger might have actually escalated. Or because he was often a compliant kid, he might have done what you asked, actually, but he would have done it with not such a great attitude.
Right.
His apology would probably not have been genuine, and his resentment toward Phoebe would have probably increased. And Phoebe would have been really hurt. She'd feel that you didn't really care about what she was experiencing, and as a result, she probably would have shut down on you, actually. She might have even feigned acceptance of Jacob's apology, but it wouldn't have meant anything to her because she'd sensed his lack of real remorse.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's how most
I
of that would
agree.
have played out. Yeah.
So would jumping straight to step 5 really have done the job of setting limits and solving the problem?
Of course not.
No.
In fact, it probably would have added to the kids' pain.
Yeah.
They would have felt alone in the struggle and misunderstood, and the rift between them might have deepened. The reality is demanding compliance and forcing a problem-solving agenda right out of the gate doesn't really help kids at all. In the big picture, it can actually create deeper levels of struggle for them.
So we're holding off on step 5, which is setting limits and helping kids to solve problems, until we've set the stage for our kids to calm down and get them into the emotional state where they can actually engage in this step. And the only way to do that is to go through the first 4 steps before you move into step 5.
Exactly. So let's talk about step 5. Phoebe and Jacob, they've been emotion coached through those first 4 steps. Now, what did you do to start setting limits and help them solve their problem, hon?
All right. So there are actually 5 parts within step 5. And that might sound complicated, but it's really not. And with practice, they become automatic and can usually be accomplished pretty quickly. You'll find that with experience, your child will start to take the lead and begin solving difficult problems on their own, which is amazing. And it's what we want for our kids.
For sure. So problem solving is a life skill we want to model and teach our kids. And this is the perfect opportunity to do that.
Exactly. So here are the 5 parts of step 5. First is limit setting. Second is identifying goals. Third is thinking of possible solutions. Fourth, evaluating those proposed solutions based on your family's values. And 5, helping your child choose a solution.
Okay, great. So I love these 5 parts of step 5. Now, let's just kind of walk through and show how simple this is as you talked with Jacob.
Okay, first, I set the limit by saying something like this. But I can see you're disappointed with Mrs. Lee's decision to put Phoebe in the lead, and you're irritated with how Phoebe bossed you around. I'd probably feel overlooked and resentful too if that happened to me.
So you started by paraphrasing his emotions and then just validating him.
Right.
Okay, so what's next?
But Jacob, it's not okay to call Phoebe names or throw your unicycle. What might be a better way to deal with your feelings? When I'm calling out the poor behavior, I want to make sure Jacob knows that his feelings are not the problem. the misbehavior is.
So you're separating his emotions from his behavior. It's okay to feel irritated, disappointed, overlooked, and resentful. It's not okay to say hurtful things or be destructive. And then you're asking an open-ended question to help him consider his own behavior and make a better choice. So how did he answer the question?
Well, he hemmed and hawed for a bit. I don't know. But I stayed quiet and I allowed the silence to do the heavy lifting so that he'd have a few minutes to think about this. He finally said something like, well, I guess I could try to stay calm.
Okay.
And then I affirmed him. Now, I want to point out that sometimes in the limit setting stage, we'll need to give consequences or let the child know what the consequence will be if their poor behavior continues. So in this example, I did let Jacob know that, hey, bud, if there's any damage done to your unicycle, you're going to need to pay for those repairs. And if you feel like you need some help around limit setting and appropriate consequences, we'll put a link in the show notes to an episode we did a while back called How to Develop Appropriate and Effective Consequences That Empower Responsibility.
Definitely.
Yeah, episode 74. Check it out.
Okay. So what if a child can't come up with an answer to that question of what they could have done differently? We're so excited to let you know about something brand new we've created just for you.
We've realized that with so many episodes available here on the show, it might feel a bit overwhelming to find the topics that matter most to you. That's why we've created a simple tool for you to receive a personalized playlist focused on your current struggle or your biggest challenge.
That's right. It's called the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz. You'll answer just a few questions, and based on your responses, we'll email you a curated custom playlist of episodes that are specific to you.
This simple quiz will direct you to the most impactful episodes that pertain to you personally and keep you on track in your journey of discovery, learning, and growth. So, scroll all the way to the bottom of the show notes for this episode and click the link to take the Blended Family Breakthrough Quiz today.
Okay, let's get back to the discussion.
Well, I'd ask them to take some time and think about it. And then I'd circle back around and see if they were able to come up with any ideas. You can also work this into the problem-solving part that's coming up.
Okay. So you're not just giving them the answer,
No.
but you're going to give them a little time to think of a better answer.
Exactly.
Okay, great. All right, what's next?
So part 2 is identifying goals. So this one is pretty simple. You just ask the child what they would like to accomplish related to the problem at hand. Sometimes the answer is easy, but other situations like this one may require the child to determine whether the best goal is to get revenge or find a way to reconcile and prevent a future tussle, right?
Oh, revenge all the way, of course.
Sometimes it seems there's no solution in sight, such as having to adjust to a new step sibling or experiencing the death of a cherished pet.
Yeah.
In cases like these, the child's goal may be to move towards acceptance or to process through loss or find some comfort. Maybe there's something they can do to make the situation a little better, or maybe a therapist is needed to help them.
Yeah, maybe so. So with Jacob, one of the things I know about him is he's got a really tender heart when he's not in emotional pain.
Right.
And so I'd imagine that his goal would be to reconcile with Phoebe and try to prevent this from happening again. Do you think that's right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure that had I jumped straight into limit setting and problem solving without helping him to de-escalate emotionally, he probably would have wanted to seek some kind of retribution, right? To boss Phoebe around the way she'd bossed him around, or just quit Unicycle Club altogether because it's now painful.
Yeah.
But since he was calm, he decided that his goal would be to repair the relationship with Phoebe because he knew that he had hurt her feelings.
Yeah.
And also to find a way to avoid this from happening again.
Okay, so when you ask that question, hey, Jacob, like what would you like to accomplish, or what do you want to get out of this? and he was able to take some ownership and move forward. Is that what I just heard?
Yes, he was. But again, this was after spending time with those first 4 steps.
Yeah, it took a while.
The validation step really helps with this because once a child feels that their perspectives and feelings are real and valid, it's just so much easier for them to own up to their part of the problem.
Yeah.
They aren't as quick to get defensive.
Yeah, I can see how that would help Jacob to get there. I mean, honestly, I need that as well when I'm struggling.
We all want to be heard and understood.
That's right. So he decided on a pretty great goal. What about a child who says something like, I want to do something mean to get back at them? Like, how does a parent deal with that?
Right. That can be tough. But it probably means that that child needs more time expressing and labeling their feelings. They might really need some more validation. But how I would respond to that would be something like, how do you think that'll work out for you in your relationship with so-and-so? Yeah.
Whoever that is, yeah.
So I'd help the child play it out. If you do something mean, how will they react or feel about that? Is that a goal that will lead to something good or not so good? So I might talk about the golden rule and ask the child what it means to them to treat others the way that they want to be treated and help them think that through.
Yeah. So you'd spend some more time helping that child process those emotions.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then I'd help them think of possible solutions to the problem. And what this means is that you're working with your child to come up with their own ideas and possible options.
Right. Wait a second. So it's not about me taking over and kind of spouting off all the great ideas I have and what I think needs to happen when I'm running into this with a child?
No, that's not what we're doing. Remember, we're training them.
Okay. All right.
We're allowing the child to explore the situation from their own perspective and experience, which will help them to follow through and own the outcome. And they'll grow in confidence and competence around problem solving.
All right. So we're not going into fix-it mode, but what are we going to do instead?
Dun, 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 dun. Another open-ended question, of course.
I love open-ended questions.
So with Jacob, I simply asked, what ideas do you have about how you might solve this problem and reach your goal? I also reassured him that there are no bad ideas. We're just brainstorming possible options. Another question to ask kids who are struggling is, what's one thing that might make this situation better or easier or more comfortable for you?
Yeah, I love that. It's a really effective thing for blended family dynamics with a child who might be struggling with all the different changes.
Right.
Okay, so you've made it safe for Jacob to voice his own ideas. Do you remember what he came up with?
You know, I don't remember all of his ideas, but I do remember that one was to forgive Phoebe.
Okay, so that was around his goal of kind of repairing the relationship.
Yes. But he didn't say anything about wanting to offer her an apology, which was the idea I was hoping he'd come up with.
So now you're going to go into fix-it mode and make sure he...
No.
All right. So how do you handle that then? You've asked him to explore options. He doesn't come up with the one option you're really hoping that's going to actually help solve the problem and help the kids move forward.
Right. So as Jacob shared his ideas, I continued to ask, well, what else could you do? Just to get him to go deeper and continue exploring. Now, as I remember, he did come up with some other ideas. One was to ask the unicycle coach if he could lead one of the unicycle tricks, which I thought was a great idea.
Yeah, that's good.
But he never did say I should apologize to Phoebe, just that he was willing to forgive her. So after he had exhausted all of his ideas through my asking, what else? What else? What else? And he kind of got to the end of that. Then I simply asked permission to share.
Okay.
I said, Jacob, you've come up with some great ideas. Would it be okay if I shared a thought with you? And then I waited for his permission to share.
Yeah, that's always a really good move. The research shows that when we're asked and then grant permission, it actually opens up our brains to receive that information in a more positive way. So keep that in mind as you're kind of chomping at the bit to dump all your great fix-it ideas onto your child. Stop and maybe ask permission to share first and then wait for them to grant you that permission. You'll get a much better response to those ideas, and it'll help kind of reduce some of the resistance.
Yeah, it reduces that counter will.
Yeah.
So Jacob granted my request.
Okay, it worked in this case.
Yes.
All right.
And then I shared, I'm wondering if apologizing to Phoebe might help you reach your goal. What do you think? And after thinking about it for a bit, he finally said, yeah, that would probably help.
I could hear his tone.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was reluctant. Yeah.
But then he said, I'm not ready to do that right now.
Okay.
Because he was still feeling a little bit of resentment.
And that's okay. That's some honesty.
Right.
Yeah.
I said, well, when do you think you might want to do that? And he said, oh, I don't know, probably later tonight or maybe tomorrow. And I just affirmed his decision. That sounds like a great idea, bud.
So you didn't force him to go apologize, even though you believed that he did owe Phoebe an apology.
Right.
Okay.
His behavior was really hurtful, but a forced apology is never genuine.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And I knew that wouldn't help mend the relationship. And so I allowed Jacob to have the space he needed so that his apology would be genuine. And then at some point, he finally did apologize to her. I think it was the next day. Phoebe was able to accept and appreciate it. And I'm assuming it was a heartfelt apology. I wasn't actually there.
Okay.
I just trusted Jacob to do it in his own timing.
Well, good for him. I think Phoebe would have said if it wasn't genuine.
Yeah.
She's not afraid
Yeah,
to.
everything was, good between them after that.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so let's recap for a second the parts of this fifth step of emotion coaching. Part 1 was setting a limit around Jacob's poor behavior. Part 2 was just identifying his goals. And part 3 was exploring some possible solutions.
Right.
So what's the next part?
So part 4 is evaluate proposed solutions based on your family's values. And again, this is actually pretty simple. We're just going to ask the child to consider each of their ideas one by one and ask these kinds of questions. Is this a fair solution? Will this solution work? Is it safe? How are you likely to feel? And how are other people likely to feel?
Okay, I really like this because it gives another opportunity to help the child explore the necessity of limits on certain behaviors. So back to that child who's stuck on the idea of retaliation toward a sibling, when you can run through these kinds of questions, it actually helps that child come face to face with the outcomes, the negative and the positive outcomes of whatever choices they really want to make.
Right. And we can talk about our family values by asking something like, help me understand how being mean to your sister will uphold our family value of kindness, or respect, or forgiveness, or whatever it may be.
Right.
And then wait for the child to process that and give you an answer.
Yeah. So the hope is they're eventually going to realize that, okay, this retaliation idea doesn't really uphold the family value. And then we can help kind of gently redirect them.
Exactly.
Okay.
By saying, what ideas do you have that will uphold our family value in this situation?
Yeah, good. Again, you're not giving them the answer.
No.
You're just guiding them and allowing them to do the heavy lifting as they process and think about our well-placed, open-ended questions. This is so much more impactful for their healthy development than just telling them what they should do. We really want them to own their solutions.
Right.
It's good for them to wrestle with this and figure it out on their own.
Exactly. So when Jacob and I explored these questions together, is this solution fair? Will it work? Is it safe? How are you likely to feel? And how are other people likely to feel? There was some clarity around which ideas were good ones and which ones could be crossed off his list.
Yep.
And that leads me to the last part of step 5, which is help your child choose a solution.
Okay, you want to help them to choose a solution. What does that actually look like?
You'll encourage your child to think for themselves while at the same time offering your opinions and guidance. And a great way to do that is to share one of your own experiences with a similar problem.
Okay, what does that sound like?
Well, in this situation, I shared with Jacob how my brother used to bully me and my other siblings sometimes as well. And I talked about the anger and the resentment I harbored towards my brother for years and how we never really had a close relationship. Then I shared how I hope that never happens between he and Phoebe and how special siblings are in our lives. It's a special bond.
Yeah.
And this was powerful, and it opened up his heart towards Phoebe and towards the idea of preserving their relationship.
Yeah, that's great. Personal stories from our own childhoods can be really powerful for kids, especially the ones where we've messed up and learned hard lessons along the way.
Absolutely. And that brings up a good point. Well, we want our kids to make a good decision. Keep in mind that children also learn from their mistakes. So if your child seems to be veering towards an idea that you know isn't workable or wise, you might consider just allowing them to try it anyway, as long as it doesn't cause harm to them or someone else, of course.
Right.
Then later, when it fails, you can help the child analyze why their idea didn't work and start the problem-solving process again. And you'll want to make a point with the child that, this is all part of the learning process. There can be trial and error, and that each adjustment moves them closer to a successful outcome.
Such an effective strategy, but it's a really tough pill to swallow when you see some inevitable failure coming. Yeah. So you might want to help your child keep a problem-solving notebook to record their ideas as you brainstorm together. This can be really helpful when they come to realize their original idea wasn't actually the best option, and they're now ready to explore other ideas and listen to any advice that you might have to offer.
Yeah, exactly. A notebook also teaches the child how to organize their thoughts and ideas as they learn to problem solve on their own. Now, once your child has made a decision around a solution, you can help them come up with a concrete plan for following through. And this is where I helped Jacob decide when he was going to apologize to Phoebe and what he might want to say to her. We also talked about how he would approach the unicycle coach, Mrs. Lee, to ask for a lead position in the future, and how he'd handle himself if he didn't get the answer he was hoping for.
That's right, yep.
And this is also a good time to ask the child how you can help or what they might need from you. Maybe they need a hug or some reassurance. Maybe they'd like to do some role play with you to practice a conversation they're planning to have with someone.
Yeah, I remember emotion coaching Phoebe through a problem that she was having in class with a couple of girls who were excluding her and made unkind comments throughout the day.
Right.
When she landed on her solution of meeting with the teacher to ask if her desk could be moved away from these girls, she asked if we could come with her to that meeting. She just needed a little sense of security because she was feeling a bit nervous.
Yeah, I remember that. And we were careful to clarify that she would be in charge of the meeting with the teacher, but we were happy to be there for support. And it worked out really well because Phoebe did a great job expressing her experience to the teacher without bad-mouthing the other girls. And the teacher responded really kindly. Phoebe learned a great deal from all of that.
Yeah, she really did. It was a valuable experience for sure. And it started out with an emotion coaching conversation when we noticed that she was struggling. All right. So after working through all the 5 parts of this final emotion coaching step with Jacob, we did limit setting, identifying goals, thinking of possible solutions, evaluating proposed solutions based on the family's values, and helping him choose a solution that he could follow through with. It sounds like the unicycle problem was eventually resolved. Is that right?
Well, it was a bit messy, of course, which we need to anticipate with kids. But we did get there. I also went through a problem-solving process with Phoebe that was mainly focused on having empathy and forgiveness.
Yeah, that's great. Now, one thing that we do need to point out here is that there are times when it's more appropriate to engage in some kind of correction or discipline first before having an emotion coaching conversation. An example would be if a child is in danger or hurting themselves or hurting someone else. That kind of behavior needs to be addressed right away. In addition, it might be appropriate to start out with limit setting when your child behaves in a way that clearly violates your family values, and that needs to be brought to their attention really quickly. The good news is you can actually do that still by asking an open-ended question. I love open-ended questions, right? So something like that might sound like, hey, Jacob, tell me how slamming your door upholds our family value of respect, right? So we maybe start there and then quickly jump back to step 1 of emotion coaching.
Right. You'll still have an emotion coaching conversation.
Yeah.
You'll just start with a quick limit setting conversation about the immediate behavior. And by the way, there are a few other examples of times when emotion coaching in the moment is not appropriate that Gottman covers in his book.
Yeah.
And we're going to touch on those in our upcoming Simple Step episode next week. So make sure that you're subscribed to the show on your favorite listening app so that you don't miss that.
Absolutely. All right. So we've covered all 5 steps of emotion coaching over the past 4 days.
Yep.
Let's quickly recap. Step 1 is all about being aware of the child's emotion. Step 2 is recognizing the emotion as an opportunity for intimacy and teaching. Step 3 is listening empathetically and validating the child's feelings. Step 4 is helping the child verbally label their emotions. And then in step 5, we're setting limits while we help the child problem solve.
Yes. And I just want to reiterate that anyone can learn to be an emotion coaching parent.
Right.
And from my own personal experience, this has greatly benefited our kids. It's created deeper intimacy between us, and it's also helped them to recover from upsetting experiences and move away from undesired behaviors.
It's true.
And I believe it's one of the most impactful things we've done over the years, honey, because it's created connection and closeness.
Yeah.
And we experience that now with them as adults.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, John Gottman's book, Raising an Emotionally Intelligent Child, is my all-time favorite parenting book because it's helped me so much in becoming the kind of parent I really want to be.
Yeah.
Not dismissive, not disapproving, not laissez-faire, but capable of tolerating my kids' difficult emotions and helping them acknowledge and work through them. Emotional awareness is a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
I truly believe that.
Totally agree. Becoming an emotion coaching parent or a step parent will lay the groundwork for a collaborative relationship with your kids and stepkids. And the best thing for me is the effects of emotion coaching are going to last throughout childhood, and it better equips your kids as they move into adulthood and they're out on their own having to navigate their emotional worlds without you as their parent. Yeah. They're going to know how to regulate their emotions, get along with others, effectively work through problems, and avoid mistakes that they might have made if they weren't equipped with these important skills. Hey, we know that we've covered a lot today, and we know the concept of emotion coaching might seem complicated or time-consuming. But just like every other new skill in life, the more we practice it, the more we excel. And in fact, once you try it a few times, you find that, you know what, this is actually pretty simple.
Yeah.
So we encourage you to grab John Gottman's book and take the assessment test in the show notes to get started. But for today, just pick one of the 5 steps to focus on and be gentle with yourself because you're not going to get it perfect right out of the gate.
That's right. The goal here is imperfect progress. That's how I've learned all this.
Yep.
The coaching I was able to do with Phoebe and Jacob was a result of imperfect, sometimes awkward coaching attempts over a few years.
Right.
But with each attempt, it got a little easier and my confidence grew. And I saw the amazing benefits that came from helping my kids navigate tough emotions. Engaging in this kind of open dialogue helps our kids to move through difficult stuff in life that they're going to face. I love this simple phrase, feel, deal, and heal.
Yeah.
Kids do feel, and they can easily get stuck in painful cycles of confusion, anger, fear, anxiety, and depression if they aren't able to express and cope with their emotions in a healthy way. And you can help them to deal with their painful experiences and heal as they recover from them.
Yeah. Now, if the concept of emotion coaching is new to you and you're just not sure you've got what it takes to become an emotion coaching parent, we encourage you to try to adopt a growth mindset. Start slow and just keep at it. You'll be amazed at the imperfect progress that you can make when you simply stay the course and you're determined to show up really well for your kids and for your stepkids when they're struggling. And hey, if you need some help, reach out to us. Grab that link in the show notes and schedule a free coaching call. We'd be happy to help you.
Absolutely. You know what? When it comes to becoming an emotion coaching parent, if I can get there, so can you.
That's right.
You really can.
Hey, thanks for hanging with us through this 4-part mini-series. It's been such a pleasure to serve you. And that's going to make all these episodes a wrap.
Until next time.